Good morning, or whatever time it might be when you're watching this. Where I am right now, it's about 20 after 9 on a Saturday morning. So I wanted to put together a quick video just to show a little bit around my studio room. I've never really done this before. Um, there's been a lot of photos and things like that online, but I haven't really ever done a video of the room itself. I have with the drum kit that's behind me. And I have done some screencast kind of videos, but never really anything showing my space, which I'm really happy with. I have built over a lot of years. It's just an office, nothing special, but I've tried to make it a great little hobby room. So going to go over those different pieces now. All right, so here's the beginning of my video of my studio. One of the most important things is something to hold your beverage, whether in this case it's coffee at 9:30 in the morning or something else later. You can see me there. Here I am taking the video of both of these items at the same time. So here in front of me, the heart of the studio is the dual monitor situation, just two 1080p monitors. Those things are running off of this unusually large beast of a case that happens to be holding a new Intel 8700K along with 16 gig of RAM and an MSI motherboard. Just put those in about a week or so ago. I've got a Logitech gaming mouse. This is useful because not only it's a comfortable mouse to use, but it's also got buttons on the side, buttons on the top here, and then additional things here, and an infinite wheel on the top, which is really super convenient. My only complaint about this thing is that its battery life is absolutely terrible. It uses a USB cable, so it works as a cabled mouse. That also charges the battery, and seriously, if I sit here for 3 or 4 hours using my computer, just doing office tasks, that battery is dead. Going up from there, I have the sound card, right? So the sound card here is a PreSonus Studio 1824. The primary reason that I got the 1824, even though it's just me who's using this thing, is so that I could get the additional input. So on here I've got a vocal, a guitar, a stereo pair that I pass my regular sound card through, so I can get my PC sounds through my monitoring system and I can listen to regular music there. And then I also have the hi-hat and the ride cymbal coming off of the drum module from there. And then down below I have the individual outs of the Mimic Pro, which is coming off of a DB25 that you can see right there. That DB25 feeds out the 8 channels, so I've got kick, snare, a pair of stereo toms, a pair of stereo overheads, a pair of room mics, and then, as I said, the separate hi-hat and ride going to 2 inputs on the guy up above. So yeah, it's probably a little overkill from the perspective of it's one person recording in a studio, but that way I can get all of my tracks. They're always ready all the time. See, these fancy little spacers that are holding these 2 rack units apart are actually Microsoft original PC phones with the pull-out keyboard. They work great too. Just put enough space between those units to make sure there's airflow. I actually had these cables running through this gap up here, so that's why that was there to start with, but now they're run in a better way, so I could probably eliminate those. Speakers. I have had these Yamahas. They are I guess the successor of the NS10s. I've had these things for, I don't know, probably 15 years or so. They're really great little monitors. It's a 5.5, I think, and a 1-inch tweeter. And then down below, I have this sub. That's an M Audio sub that I got from, I guess it was Musician's Friend. And at the time that it was listed, I got this, probably a $450 sub. I got for $149. I think it was a mistake, and so I bought it. But that thing really helps to even out the sound on these, which have an otherwise very flat but not very bass flattering kind of a response. And I like to have a little bit of bottom, or I'll wind up mixing wrong, and I don't like to listen to it, honestly. All right, so going from there, we have this, which is an Edirol PCR 800. What I like about this guy is that it's got a lot of knobs, faders, some individual keys that I have assigned to controls within Studio One. They were assigned previously in Cakewalk. It's got transport stuff over here that I don't really use a whole lot, but it's there. Mixed feelings on this. The pitch bend is great. The mod is okay, except that it's spring-loaded. It would be nice to be able to get that to stay in one place. I got a little dynamic mic over here. On the walls, you'll notice I've got the corner. That's a thicker trap, and then I've got these for the reflections here beside the monitors, so I don't have a lot of wall reflection happening. If you don't have anything like this in your place, it is well worth the effort. Just this corner of the room sounds surprisingly good, especially considering that it's a corner. I also have on the other side of the room over there, one there, and then on this side of the room back there, I've got another one. And those, I don't really honestly know how much good they do, but, you know, it's something. Anyway, so below this, we have the PreSonus fader port. And what's really cool about the fader port, and I recently, I'm sure if you've watched any of my stuff before, in the past I was with Cakewalk and had been for many, many years. And then with the sell-off from Gibson, I kind of gave up on Cakewalk and moved over to Studio One. And in the process, I kind of bought into the PreSonus line. So, you know, as noted, I've got the PreSonus sound card, I've got the PreSonus fader port 8, and then I've got Studio One itself. And the three things work together super well. Of course, these devices all work with Cakewalk too, which I sometimes still use, especially for going back to old projects. And occasionally I consider going back into using Cakewalk for my recording and stuff. So I'm loading up the last song that I did in Studio One right now. You can see that happening on the screen. And as that's happening, it's going to load up and it's going to automatically modify the fader port here is going to adjust. And it has all these little scribbles across the top that have all of the information on those. You've got your great little transport area over here. Lots of options for, you know, controlling where you are in zoom and in scroll and which channels you're looking at and all of that. So I really like this particular unit a good bit, especially when using Studio One. Studio One's not everybody's favorite. I guess we all have our choices. I like it a lot. It does what I needed to do. So did Cakewalk. I'm sure probably so would pretty much any of the others. So moving behind me, or actually, you know what, down just a little bit right below here, we have this keyboard. And this is a really cool keyboard. It's, you know, really it's actually a gaming keyboard. It's the G910 series keyboard there. But it's got all these keys on the side here that are macro keys, and then also keys across the top up here that are macro keys, and then banks that you can assign, you know, 4 different banks of these 5 and those 4 macros. So you have a lot of different key combinations that you can use. And how I have some of this stuff set up is like over here, I have these set up for mix scenes. So I can actually go into, this is the, excuse me, the all scene is this top one up here. But then if I go down to here to the second one that's blue, you'll notice I've got that happens and it just goes to my drums, which are set to blue. And then I've got this next set here, and that one goes to my guitars. And then I've got this last one down here, the green one, that goes to my vocals and back up to all. So it's a really cool way to get some mix scenes on the screen to eliminate, you know, the scrolling back and forth when you're working on a special part. So this It's very comfortable. It's mechanical, so it's got a lot of travel on the keys, but it also has these extra special features. Moving over, we have the Mimic, which right now is locked. So we've got the Mimic brain and all of my electronic drum pads that are attached to that. And going around there, I've got my old PD-120 here, a couple of 120s over there for my toms, a couple of 100s up there that I've modified to have rim triggers. That one is a PDX-8. These are the ATV hi-hat, so it's a two-piece hi-hat here. And so you see that. It's also, what's kind of cool about this one is it's got power, and it uses an optical sensor instead of a physical one, which makes it faster reacting and I think more accurate. Up here we've got a little 8-inch Roland Crash. I don't know what the model is on that. CY8 maybe. Then we've got our CY14s up there. There are two Roland Crashes. Those things have lasted me forever. I've had them since 2000, maybe 99, something like that. They still work great. The CR15R that's over there, and then I've got a KD, I think it's a KD8 down there. I like it that it's the tower, but it's also a rubber pad, so it doesn't have a lot of rebound like the like some of the Roland ones. My newest addition is this homemade DW snare, which I took a DW 13 by 5.5. It's an odd sized drum. I like it a lot because it's a little smaller than a regular snare at 13, but it's still bigger than the 12-inch pads that were the typical Roland. And it's a cool looking drum. I mean, it's a, you know, that champagne sparkle kind of thing. Always loved playing this when I was playing acoustics. And so I made this one myself using some, you know, trigger parts that you can see up underneath there. You can probably see them down through here as well if you look real hard. This is actually one of the things I don't like is that you can see through the head as much as you can. But it plays really well, and I think it looks cool, and it's comfortable, and it also freed up the ability to add the side snare or side low tom, which I use. So going to the other side of the room, over here right next to me, I've got my newest, this is an Epiphone Les Paul Traditional Pro 2. I am not a guitarist. I like to play one, but I'm not. So I have a bunch of guitars here that I can play enough to get by. I would not go and play live, but I like this particular one. And how this came about was I have this Variax over here. So that's the Variax 500. Still like it for some things, but what I found was that the only model I really liked on it was the Les Paul model. I liked the way that that sounded. It was one of the Les Paul models anyway. And so I decided to get an actual Les Paul since that's the sound I found I preferred. That's one of the great benefits of having used the Variax is I found out what I actually like versus having to go out and buy a bunch of guitars, which obviously would cost a lot more. I think this 500 cost me $4.99 or something like that. Right above that, we've got a Variax 700 bass. That's a 5-string bass that was discontinued, and so I got a stupid deal on that when I bought it. I think it was $299 or something like that. And it's a fine bass. It does, you know, again, like the other Variax, it does a lot of different bass sounds. I honestly need exactly one, but I don't really know which one. Sadly, that little Peavey that's sitting next to it, or I'm sorry, the Ibanez that's sitting next to it, I use that a lot more. It's easier to play, it's smaller, it's got a thinner neck, and it sounds fine. So the Variax is pretty, and that's about all. Over here on the mic side of things, I've got a Rode NT1, and then of course behind it I've got the sound dampening or whatever you want to call it. It's a Rockwool product, and when you get in front of it, I mean, it just completely sucks the sound out from behind. And so with it being behind the mic here, it prevents any of the reflections coming off the wall and into the backside of the mic or, you know, around the front. So it just sounds a little cleaner. Below that, you've got the Hansonic. This is a Hansonic 10. I don't use it a lot. I've used it some. I've actually gigged with it a few times and used it as a small kit. That is great for little hand percussion kinds of things, congas and bongos and other like djembe and things like that that I just don't have. I don't have the room for. I don't feel like miking, etc., etc. Over on this side, we've got this is an 1861 Ovation Balladeer. It's a 6-string. It's okay. I like it as an acoustic that I don't ever play. I don't really record with it until recently. I found the convolution reverb stuff that actually makes these piezo pickups sound pretty good. This is here because I actually found that I thought that the metal stand of my monitor was ringing, and it was ringing in a not pleasant way, and it was just making this almost feedback-like sound around me. And it turned out, after I really kind of paid attention to what was happening, is the sound was coming off of that other corner over there and bouncing up against here and vibrating the strings on this guitar. And it was just like something resonant, and it was just ringing like a G constantly. So I have that always there. Next to that, I've got this Fender Nashville Telecaster. This was actually my first guitar. My wife bought it for me in about 98 or something like that. I don't play it a lot because it has some fret buzz issues. I'm not super crazy about the Tele sound, but what's cool about this one is that it's actually got, instead of your standard Telecaster 2 single coil pickups here, it's also got this third one in the middle that's a more of a Strat-like pickup. And so it's got a 5-way selector like a Strat would have. And so you can get combinations. You can hear, that, or that. And it makes it a little bit more versatile than a standard Tele. Then I've got my inspiration, of course, Queen. I love Queen. Got a couple of picture discs and a signed disc there in the middle. Clock. So I know what time it is. And then, so that's pretty much it. That's the whole thing. I got my comfortable gaming chair there, and so that's the overall of the room. So you can kind of see, I'll do a full 360 here. So starting with the unfinished barn door, going around to the guitar section, going this way, and then over the computer and all, and then the drums over here, and then the blank wall over there. So overall, that's the way that the room is set up. All right, so there's my room. I hope you got something useful out of this video, and maybe it inspires you to make one of your own. We spent a lot of time online chatting with each other about what we're doing in our space, so I figured I would create this video as an extension to the images and the text that we put out there. So again, thanks for watching the video, and have a great day.